Back at it, Athlete Builder. Three of us today, Jay, Lucas, and myself. So I'm in the library. Lucas is up in Fort Wayne, and Jay is out in Arizona. What we have about Jay today, there's a lot of ways I can introduce him. I can introduce him as Patriot, ATF federal agent. I could introduce him as a professional bullet stopper because he's been shot more than once. Also, a football player, All Pac-10, All American candidate, football coach. He's coached people that were just drafted this past weekend. If you go on his website, you see he speaks all around the world. His message is about impact. His life has been about impact. People that recommend him, president of Arizona Cardinals, president of Phoenix Suns, Surgeon General, the Red Bull High Performance Athlete Team, Dr. Andy, how do you say his last name?
Walshy.
Walshy, that's right. Lute Olson, right? So there's plenty of people that recommend him. I read one of his two main books. He's a former Hell's Angel, but not really because he infiltrated him as an ATF agent. Just going to be a lot of lessons here, a lot of carryover, and a lot of generosity with his time and his knowledge. If those don't remember, episode 61 was Tim Brown, the firefighter, FDNY, 9/11 survivor, huge impact, and an awesome soul and person. And he hooked us up with Jay Dobyns. So, Jay, man, thanks for your service. Thanks for being on the show today. Thanks for helping us out, make an impact.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. Like we said offline, I'm very much a common man. I've been in some uncommon situations, but my perspectives and my thoughts on this stuff are very blue collar. So I'll try to keep up with some of the expertise that you've had and some of the guests you've had on the show previous.
Jay's obviously very, very humble, and his accomplishments are extraordinary. So I'll sing his praises since he doesn't have to. We just had the NFL draft last week, and one of the people you recommend was just drafted. You coached in high school, and Jay, let's assume that you were being drafted this weekend. These kids that get pulled out in the first round, they're walking on stage, and they have a walkout song they can pick when they're walking out. So assuming you just got drafted this past Thursday night, Jay, what would your walkout song be?
Freebird, Leonard Skinner.
Nice, right?
That's an easy one. You hit me blind with that one, but that's an easy one.
Now the party's over, or the party's getting started. You got drafted. You got your hat. You got your jersey. The plane is there. They're gonna be picking you up to take you to whatever city. But before that, you and your closest friends are going out to eat somewhere. What's your cheat meal? What's your big party meal look like?
You know what? When I'm can't make a decision, like I'm a Chipotle guy because it's easy for me. I know I'm going to get what I like, and I go to restaurants, I order the same thing every time at every restaurant. Like I walk in and they don't even need to throw a menu down in front of me because at a certain place they know what I'm getting.
Dang. So you're paying tens of millions, and you're getting a $14 burrito, maybe with some guacamole and some queso and some chips, and hanging out with your wife having a Diet Coke.
Yeah, simple
All
is
right.
good. Simple is good.
Simple is good. Simple is good. ATF agent, Pac-10, all Pac-10 wide receiver, badass. Been in some skirmishes. Also very kind, helping people. I ask these people, for those that don't know, I put out a questionnaire beforehand, and I say, hey, what's your 3-year, 5-year, 10-year plan? And all he simply said was, I want to be a good person, and I want to get into heaven. That's it. So talk about simple, but when you say something like that, that's like the Marines where they have that rule, conduct unbecoming, right? So that conduct unbecoming rule encompasses everything. So if you say I want to be good and get into heaven, that kind of encompasses everything. What's that mean for you as your North Star, as your direction?
Well, it's like you said, it's a simple goal, but it's the ultimate goal. There's other elements that are a part of that. There's other parts of your life that contribute to that. And so I'm not short selling any of those components, but ultimately the question is what's your goal for the next 5 years, 10 years, 20 years? I'm 63 years old. And I never really experienced this until recently. When you cross that 60 marker, Like you start thinking about your mortality. Like, how much time do I have left? What can I do with that time I have left? I think any of us, no matter how old we are, no matter what level of accomplishment we've received, if you ever get to a point in your life where you feel you've peaked, like I'm never going to do anything as good as I've done in the past,
Mm.
man, that's a bad place to be. You
Yep.
always have to be hopeful that like you still have something meaningful to give to someone.
I, I just turned 50 in December, and I would say it's like I was 46. I just come off a bunch of injuries. I stopped doing strongman and powerlifting. I'm making this transition, and like 47, 48. I'm thinking about my dad who was sick at 58 and dead at 62 or 63. And I was like, you know what? Clock's ticking, and I still really happy and loving that I had my gym running. And as I started thinking, like I have some thoughts and impact I want to do, so I wrote this book, and that's why we launched this podcast. The but it didn't really start hitting me till then. Hey, clock's ticking. It sounds like for you at 63, the clock's ticking thought popped in your head kind of recently, which I find interesting because you were shot in your 20s and you're in this line of work where life and death is on the line all the time as you're infiltrating the Hells Angels. So was the clock ticking thought also occurring back then too, or just more
Yeah,
recently?
but the increments have changed. I
Yep.
lived for a while on like the 5 year plan. Like I've got like when I was young, like I'm only going to make it 5 more years.
Oh,
There was some times in my life, there was some adventures, some professional adventures when I was working undercover, where I was living like almost on a day to day or a week to week timeline. Like I need to make it, I need to stay alive one more day, one more week. Um, but you know what, like you start thinking that, or I was thinking that as a 20-year-old, like I said, I'm 63. So like I keep blowing through those timelines. I'm just not extending them. I think it's super important to be where your feet are, to like live in the moment. What can I do now? What can I do today? I'm on this podcast with you. Can I say something or relate a message or tell a story that someone in your audience like embraces and says, man, I can relate to that. It means something to me. So that's what I'm talking about. Being where your feet are right now. I've got all kinds of things going on and problems like everybody else, but I have to be focused on our conversation because this is what is important in the here and now as we speak.
completely agree. Completely agree. Had number of ups and downs today, and I was like, oh man, I was kind of like really excited because I had this long swim this morning, but also like I'm looking through, I'm doing all the business numbers, and I'm like, well, shoot, look at that, and I'm like, so I come home and I just finished coaching, which brought me back up. I'm like, hey man, it's like when they in that movie Over the Top, where Sylvester Stallone is an arm wrestler and he flips that hat around to change his mindset. I'm like, my wife Jen, she's like, be present, be present. I'm like, yeah, 100%. So I'm walking downstairs and the switch goes off. I'm like, all right, this is gonna be the next hour and a half of my life because it's the only hour and a half my life I'm really looking at. So I completely identify with that.
Well, I think for most of us, and I can definitely say this for me, things never go the way I plan for them to.
Right.
Like I always have big plans. I always have successful, glorious plans. Um, Rarely do they work out that way. You know, life gets in the way. And so like that's part of, I think the highest achievers in life, like regardless of what your profession is, regardless of what you do for a living, the common denominator is that the great ones, the elite ones are problem solvers. The people that are great at solving problems are the ones that are elevated into positions of leadership, given the most responsibility. And when you can consistently find good solutions, then you know what? Then okay, things aren't working out the way they're supposed to be, but they're working out the best that we can given the circumstance.
Yes. Yes. The when you had that when you're younger, the 10-foot tall and bulletproof mindset. I only got 5 years, so I'm going to go now. I'm going to go hard now. I would argue that's fairly freeing. So I can maybe take more risks. I can go all in a little bit more, whether it's football or not. So you're playing for Arizona and out there in in the Pac-10. I gotta believe that seems to be a commonality in your personality of, hey, this is where I'm at. I'm playing football. I'm gonna try to be the best football player I can be, and then it translates over later in life. How much is that? How much of that is true? A true assessment that you were all in trying to be the best player you could be, and that commonality kind of moves along forward through yourself.
Well, as an athlete, so much of what I learned as an athlete just were life lessons, not necessarily sports lessons, but life
Sure,
lessons.
sure.
So I think that there's people out there in the world who are content to be average, and average is fine. Average will get you through. Um, there's people that want to be great. They want to take a step up. There's people who strive for excellence, and they're starting to push the envelope. And then there's a handful of people, a lot of who you've had as guests on your show, who they only will accept being elite. And that's the highest tier that we reach is that elite level. But to be elite, you have to be obsessed. With whatever it is, you have to have an obsession. And not everybody's willing to commit into that obsession, into that lifestyle that it takes, whatever it is you're doing to be elite. And then the obsession in seeking eliteness, if that's even a word, the obsession is a double-edged sword. It can push you to great things, but there's negative sides to being obsessed with anything that bring pain.
So a lot of people push or promote or subscribe to that work-life balance, personal, professional balance, keeping that pendulum, neutral. And to your point, the greats are significantly out of balance for at least a portion of their life, if not all of it, right? And if you watched Jordan's documentary, he said, yeah, there was a cost because he was winning at all costs, right? But there was a significant cost, personal cost, financial costs. And if you read your book, an undercover agent, there are missed events, there are missed birthday parties, there's missed emotional support, right? And because you're all in doing something unbelievably hard, unbelievable, infiltrating the Hells Angels, getting fully patched. For those that means you're a full-fledged member. That is unbelievably hard. That's like not making the NFL. That's like making the NFL Pro Bowl, all pro, and then going to Hall of Fame level, right? That's how rare that is. But there's, like you said, there's got to be that cost. So talk about how people go about making that choice, consciously or subconsciously, whether it's in sports or professionally. How do they go about doing that? How do they make that work?
Well, like I've always strived to be elite. I don't know that I ever became elite in anything that I tried to do. That was the goal, and I've been obsessed. I have an obsessive compulsive personality, so the obsession part of it isn't hard for me. Um, the downside for me is that through that obsession, and I learned this the hard way. Like I live a peaceful, content life, but there was times when it was very much the opposite of that, mostly due to that obsession. And like for me, that obsession equated to selfishness. And I made decisions for myself, about myself, what was going to impact me, what was going to be best for me. And in that process, I learned this the hard way. And this is an unflattering statement to make about myself. There was a period of time in my life, I was a terrible husband. I was a terrible father. I wasn't a very good friend. That selfishness and that obsession got in the way of what was truly important. And that's, you touched on this earlier. When you're young, like you have time to make mistakes because there's time to fix them. There's time to repair those mistakes. I've felt this as I've gotten older. Like I can't screw things up anymore because I don't have the time to fix it.
Mhm. Not for nothing, like you and your wife and your kids are still together. So one, it's the question's got to be like, how did that happen? Like just from the emotional teamwork kind of standpoint. But number two, like you're an adjunct professor at a university. People can go online and find out when you're teaching a class. And there were four international contracts out to kill you. How are you still alive? How does someone not just simply show up to class early and make it happen? Like, how this is I read this, I was going with my wife, she goes, how's this guy alive? I go, man, shit, I don't know, but sure enough, I'm gonna look at him today and it's him. So how does that happen?
Well, there was two parts to your question. So the
Yes.
first part about family,
Yes.
and my family's together. I've been married for 37 years. My family survived me, which is an accomplishment of them all on their own. I get no credit for my family being together. There's what was 1,000 different occasions where I should have came home and everything I owned should have been dumped in the front yard and the lock should have been changed. Um, I've said this many times publicly and privately. I've made a million mistakes in my life. I've done a million things wrong. But between God and Gwen and my kids, they've given me 1,000,001 second chances to try to fix it and to try to get it right. Um, so I think that's like those regrets and that shame and the humiliation that I put on myself at times. That's like I've learned to embrace that. That like tries to keep me in the center line from not like that Jaybird character that worked undercover. He's still here. He's still in here. I don't like him very much. I try to keep that character buried. He can come out, given the right circumstances, which probably leads into my answer to the second part of your question. Yeah, I had murder contracts on me, from international organized crime syndicates. Um, but what I didn't want to do is I didn't want to hide. I actually, let me back up a little bit. I tried hiding. It's impossible to hide. Like unless you've got like the CIA behind you and they can bury you somewhere, or you're in the witness security program and like someone is going to completely realign your life. Like none of us can hide. Um, and I felt like if I tried to hide, that they win, they own me, they still control me. Now there's another element to that. The hatred for me was at its peak 20 years ago. Like time helps with that. The people that hated me have probably, not that they don't hate me now, they've just found new people to hate more.
Or maybe they passed away,
But like I don't hide. Um,
right?
but I'm not looking for a problem. I don't want a problem.
Right.
I'll step aside of a problem. I'll avoid a problem. If I have an exit, I'll run away from a problem if given the opportunity. If I get cornered, if you corner me or my family, like we'll figure it out, and it's not going to be good for any of us. All of us are going to the hospital.
Hmm. The part about the forgiveness. How many times do you think you've told people, "Hey, I wasn't a good husband. My wife should have left me, and I made some mistakes," and you point out some lessons to other folks in a speech or a clinic or a podcast? How many times have you told people that, you think?
Oh my goodness, forgiveness is so important to me, but both to give it,
Hmm.
and from people that I ask for it from to receive it. I'll say this from my own personal perspective. It's a lot of times it's easier to forgive other people than it is to forgive ourselves.
Hmm.
We hold those regrets and we hold that shame.
Right.
And the longer you hold on to it, the heavier it gets. Um, and but if I want second chances in my life, I have to be willing to extend second chances to people. If I want forgiveness, I have to give forgiveness. It's not a one-way street.
I was liking the guilt because, growing up Catholic, there's a lot of that. And as a big bag of bricks that you're carrying over your shoulder, and someone simply said, just let go. Like if you've been in confession, you're good to go. It took me a while to really get behind that. The reason behind my prior question was I'm sure you told people a number of times, this lesson. So I'm not saying that, hey, this is a great thing, how that transpired decades ago. However, you take that moment and now it's a chance for you to evangelize to the rest of the world. Hey, don't do this. Be careful in these relationships. So luckily that this dynamic in your life occurred so that for 4 decades later, you're impacting countless lives in a positive way.
I
So,
saw a great lecture recently. There's a professor. He's holding a glass of water in front of him. And he asked his class, how much does this glass of water weigh? And the kid raises his hand. I think there's 8 ounces in there. He goes, it's 8 ounces as I hold it in front of me. But he goes, if I hold it out here for an hour, it's heavier. If I hold it out here for a day, it gets heavier. If I hold on to it for an extended period of time, a year, 10 years, a lifetime, the weight of it is insurmountable. Put the dang glass down.
absolutely. Oh my goodness. You coached football for a while. You played football. Having been a player, been a federal agent, and then back to being a coach, what are some of the tenets or components from football that you help relay into life? Or what are some of the life components you relay into football trying to make an impact?
Those big picture lessons that we learn in sports applied to life, applied to me as a federal agent. Mentality, like mental preparation for a game or even a practice. You mentally prepare for operations. Like you get your head right. You're going into a conflict. You're going into confrontation. Like being like that warrior mentality of getting ready to go to war. That they're not all that much different. The best thing that I had going for me, both as an athlete and as an agent, was willingness. And that's you. I'm not sure you can coach that. I coach. I'm not sure you can coach willingness. I was willing to do the things that I had to do to succeed as a football player. I was never the glamour boy who ran down the sidelines and caught the ball over his shoulder and ran into the end zone and kissed the cheerleaders. Right? I was running slants and outs and curls and digs and getting my head knocked off. That was my role. I understood my role. I loved my role. That was my contribution. That was what I was asked to do for my team, and I was willing to do that. I wasn't the way that I played football wasn't glamorous. It was reckless. That was part of my success, was that I played recklessly. I did my job as a federal agent with willingness and with recklessness. At times, again, not a flattering statement to make, my risk assessment, my risk meter was busted at times.
There's most people say there's yin and yang with most relationships. So I'm on team no breaks, my wife would say, where she's on team all breaks and helps me, not jump off cliffs all the time. As you progress as an athlete from high school to college or college to starter, or as you progress as an agent, trainee, undercover, working on the Hells Angels, as you progress, along the way, there's going to be some like milestones like, holy shit, welcome to college football moment. What was your welcome to college football moment? And then what was your welcome to the federal agent moment?
Oh, welcome to college football. Actually, it's a funny story. It wasn't funny at the time. It's funny now. So I was highly recruited out of high school. I had a lot of offers. I initially signed at the University of Arkansas. And Arkansas was an elite program under Lou Holtz.
Right.
And Coach Holtz recruited me very hard. I love Coach Holtz. I still love Coach Holtz. I think he's an amazing coach. And we're at practice one day, and he's berating one of my teammates. A kid missed a block, and he was telling him, that was the worst football play I've ever seen. Like, you're soft. And the softest name I can think of is Alice. So from now on, I'm going to call you Alice.
Whoa.
And so I tap Coach Holtz on the shoulder. I'm just trying to rescue my teammate from being smashed, being mentally, verbally smashed. I tapped Coach Holtz on the shoulder and I said, Coach, if he's Alice, what do you call me? All I wanted to do was divert the attention and give this kid a break. And Coach Holtz turned around and he said, son, I call you a recruiting mistake. And I was like, oh, like this shit just got real, man.
Mm.
And I was also like, oh, you think so? Well, wait and see. I'm going to change your mind.
Dang. So you didn't go to University of Arkansas?
I was there for a year. I was there for one season. And I did make my way, and I did prove that I wasn't a recruiting mistake. But I also felt like, you know what, there's probably a better place for me. And I was also a guy who, I loved college football. I loved the challenge of that. And I felt like maybe as I learned more about it, there might be a better fit for my skills than I was going to be able to make use of at Arkansas.
Gotcha. Now you're an ATF agent. What's your holy shit moment? Welcome to the ATF.
Well, that one was easy. I got hired on a Monday. I raised my right hand. I took my oath, and it was very important to me, supreme importance, to be asked to stand up for the good and innocent people in my community against the predators and against the people that were intending harm on them. On my fourth day, on a Monday, I get sworn in. On my fourth day, I'm a part of an arrest operation. I get taken hostage. I get shot in the back. The bullet goes in my back, point blank, goes through my lung, narrowly misses my heart. It exits my chest. There was blood coming out of my chest like you're holding your thumb over the end of a garden hose. Blood is like spraying out of my chest. 4 days on the job. With the feds, we get paid every 2 weeks. I hadn't gotten a paycheck yet.
Oh, shoot.
I comped them that one. It was on the house.
Right.
That was my hey, you want to play with the big boys? This is, this is what goes on. But you know what? It was an amazing experience. Like surviving it was its own story. But what it showed me in this job is that violence is among us. And as we hunt in law enforcement, as we hunt violence is hunting us. And if you're not mentally and physically and spiritually and emotionally prepared to encounter violence, and then use an equal or greater amount of violence to contain whatever that situation is, man, it's a good day to go sell used cars or sell insurance or go be an adjunct instructor. Go do something else with your life because the violence is there and it's in your face every day.
And you're going to lose unless you're prepared, right?
On all those levels, you got to be physically prepared, like for your audience and this athlete's focus to what we're talking about. But so yes, physically, physical health equals survival. But you got to be mentally prepared and emotionally prepared and spiritually prepared for those things that we talked about earlier. Things aren't always going to turn out the way you want them to. They're just not.
They're not.
What do you got to do to get prepared for something like that? I can't imagine. When I played college football, it certainly didn't prepare me for something like that. So what prepared you for mentally?
Well, Lucas, you know what? I get your point, but I'm going to disagree with you in that when you say that college football didn't mentally prepare you for an experience like that. Actually, I think it did. Here's what it is that get up. No one is coming to save you. Yeah. No one's coming to pick you up. You got to learn to pick yourself up.
Yeah.
College football did prepare you for it.
Okay. All right. For me, putting the because when I think when you say that and I hear that because it's because I feel like most people live in a very confound, fluffy world, like you said. If you don't want to be part of the violence, go sell cars or whatever. And you know, for an average person, a normal person that works a normal job or whatever it is, you're probably not seeing violence very often, or even things like college football. That's where I certainly wasn't ever thinking, you know. I guess now that looking back on it, maybe it did, but boy, I couldn't imagine mentally prepared. I don't
Here's
know.
the perspective, Lucas, the translation between sports, like what we know best, football, and life as an undercover agent. There's people that accept being a victim. And you can be a victim in sports. You can be a victim of an injury. You can be a victim of the depth chart. You can be a victim of coaching. And you can accept those things. Oh, I'm hurt. Okay. My coach doesn't like me. I'm buried in the depth chart. You can be a victim of that, right? You can be a victim, any of us in society, but I'm focusing on my undercover experience. You can be a victim. Oh, I just got shot. Like somebody come and fix this, right? And I did have people coming to help me to fix that problem, but you got to fix things yourself, right? So you're hurt, you're injured. Okay, what's the process to fix it? You're buried in the depth chart. How do I fix that? What do I have to do to climb out of that hole? I have a coach that doesn't care for me. Okay, be a victim of it or change the dude's mind. Make him regret. Make him regret not honoring you. That's the life of an athlete, but it's also the life of an undercover agent.
Nice.
That's the whole reason why almost all my talks and speeches are entitled "Now what? Now what? Now what?" So most people think event equals outcome when it's event plus reaction equals outcome, because all those things are true. And I know people that we've coached that have gone on to play in college, and they'll tell you, this coach doesn't like me. This coach's offense isn't good for me. This defense isn't good for me. And they're probably true statements. But then you have to answer the question, now what? Now what? Right?
Well,
and if you just sit there, then the now what is whatever people told you. Like you have no choice. You're this zombie. And
well,
that's
you're
not
now
it.
what?
That's not life.
That now what mentality goes back early in our conversation about problem solvers. Okay, I got
That's
a
right.
problem. I was confronted with a problem. Now what? Solve
Right.
it. Figure it out. Pick yourself up. No one's coming to save you. Do something about it. That's the now what.
Yes, yes. So another one of my phrases is that there's a solution to every problem, and some of those solutions are unbelievably painful, right? They're unbelievably painful, and but they are still the solution, right? They are still it, and you must choose and move forward if you want to win at anything. And you might lose the game, and you might never start, but you also have to look at yourself and say, I did all the things I thought I could come up with to do. And you have to look at yourself. I did all these things. Still got beat, okay? But like I'm sure you still got shot, right? So you're doing some of the things right, maybe not everything right, and so you got to pay that price. But you can still do your best in that moment. Hey, man, I gave my best shot. And you can't. A lot of people can look back and say, you know what, I didn't give my best shot. And then you got to live with that, and it just eats at you internally.
Well, with that pain component that you mentioned, anything worth having is worth suffering for. Anything worth having that's of value to you, you're probably going to go through some pain for. Anything you ever wanted, everything you ever dreamed of for yourself is on the other side of hard.
Yes, yes. I take athletes that are older through my 7 levels of why. And they come in to train. I go, why are you here? I say, I need to get bigger. I say, okay, well, why is that important? Well, I need to be bigger and stronger and faster. I go, why is that important? Well, I need to play varsity as a junior, and I need to be recruited my junior year, so I need to do this now. I go, why is that important? Well, I need to get, I'm looking on getting a scholarship. Who cares? Why is that important? Well, my parents don't have enough money. I want to play college football or college. As one kid, I want to be in the band at Ohio State, which is a scholarship position. You're right. So I'm going to do this event out in Pennsylvania where it's a month in the summer, and I have to be physical enough to carry this tuba so I could be in this band. And I'm going as a seventh grader, even though they only recruit high school kids, so I can go to Ohio State because I can get a scholarship because my parents can't afford it. So if you can get that level of why, it's so deep in your identity. Why did you love college football?
Why did I love college football? I'm not sure I've ever been asked that. I'm not sure that I've got
It,
a deep enough answer for it. Um,
it could be three or four things. It could be 10 things. It could be I like the noise. I like the cheerleaders. I like winning. I just simply for when I was playing any kind of sport, I just like beating people.
you know what probably like a quick thought process into that question. Um, my dad was the best man that I've ever known. He was the biggest hero I will ever have. Um, my dad uh, had satisfaction through watching me play, and I wanted to make my dad proud.
Okay,
I wanted my dad to be proud to say that's my kid out there, and
that is
that's
powerful.
the way I played. I played not necessarily with that in my mind, but I wanted I wanted not even necessarily to make plays, but to play in a way that made my dad proud.
That's it. I want to have this level of effort that people look at that and say, you know what, that's good.
There was,
That's
what I call the TNTs, which I learned from my dad, the takes no talents, the TNTs, effort, energy, enthusiasm, attitude. Like you don't have to be talented to bring those every single day, and they should be non-negotiable for any of us.
yes.
Effort, energy, attitude, um, and
I ha-
and and enthusiasm. And enthusiasm's contagious. If we surround ourselves with people who are enthusiastic, we become enthusiastic. If we're enthusiastic, people will catch that from us.
all those words are catchable on the positive and the negative. I have a note here. You know, you played well in college, and then there's a chance in 1985 NFL Combine, but I don't have the story behind that. So, you want to provide some light on that?
Yeah, I had a successful college career. I had some accomplishments that I'm proud of as an athlete. Um, one of which is simple and it's very personal. Like I had a 50 catch season in the Pac-10 when they weren't like they are today. Offenses, in the late 70s and early 80s weren't quite as dynamic as they are today. So to catch 50 passes in a season, that was something I was proud of.
Yes.
I'm still proud of. So I get invited to the 1985 NFL Combine, which at that time it wasn't in Indianapolis yet. It was in Phoenix. I think they invited me because I was a cheap ride. I was right down the road. Like I'm not sure they were all that interested in me, although I convinced myself like, hey, I got the invite, and I was like, this is my chance to show off. This is my chance. I never had a plan B. My plan A was that I was going to play pro football. So like for your audience, the combine is the NFL's meat market. They test you and weigh you and measure you and examine you. And you've got scouts and general managers and coaches and owners like trying to decide whether you are worthy of being a part of their organization. So I went into it, very optimistic with all those TNTs we talked about. And so they group you up and they put you in like groupings where you go through the drills together. And so, like I'm meeting guys that are my size, they're my age, and some of them, that I hadn't really heard of. I meet one guy and shake hands with him. He's in my group. I'm like, "Where'd you go to school?" And he said, "I went to Kutztown State." I'd never heard of Kutztown State. I was like, "Where's
Yeah.
that at?" It's in Pennsylvania. And I'm shaking hands with them. Internally, I'm thinking to myself, "I'm going to whip your ass today, man. I succeeded in the most dynamic offensive conference in the country. Like, I'm going to show off today." I meet another guy from a little school in Mississippi and shake hands, and we start going through the drills. 10 minutes into the workout, like my dream crashed. Like we said, things don't always work out the way you want them to. It took 10 minutes for me to realize these guys that I didn't know, that I wasn't familiar with, like they could do things that I couldn't do. They were stronger, faster, more dynamic, more explosive, more skilled. I was like, how am I ever going to make it when these guys that I don't know who they are, like I can't keep up with them? It turns out the guy from Kutztown State was Andre Reed, who played for the Bills for 15 years, and he's in the Hall of Fame. He played in 4 Super Bowls. The guy from the little school in Mississippi went to Mississippi Valley State. It was Jerry Rice, right? The greatest pass catching machine in the history of football, right? So I wasn't judging myself against the fairest competition, but nonetheless, I couldn't do what those guys could do. They were so exceptional. They were so amazing. And like, I wasn't threatened by them. I was like in awe of them. I was like, man, these dudes are, I mean, these cats can play football. But like a lot of young people, like I said, I didn't have a plan B. My plan A was crashing. And I was like, back to you. Now what? Now what? Now what? What are you going to do, Jay?
Is that when you decided to go into law enforcement and federal agent?
It was, and you know, that was actually like kind of a hokey introduction in itself. At that time, like I had, like a lot of young people, I had to hit the reset button. Like, what's next? So we're talking mid '80s. The television show Miami Vice was coming out, and at that time, as an audience, we hadn't seen cop shows like that. We'd seen procedurals with patrolmen in marked units and detectives responding to crime scenes. And then Miami Vice hits, and Sonny Crockett's running around South Beach in a freaking Lamborghini, and he's meeting with drug kingpins, and he's wearing a Hugo Boss suit, and you know, he's going to these narco mansions, and there's these big stripper models bringing him mojitos. And I was like, you know what, man, that looks pretty good. I wonder if I could do that. I wonder if I could do that.
And then, sure enough, you did. I wrote a note here about being all in, and it seems like you were all in playing football. But as a narcotics, murdering, raping, undercover agent for the Hells Angels, like I've seen the pictures. Like even the goatee right now, fully sleeved up with your tattoos. Like, talk about the requirement to go all in sports, also all in as an undercover agent to get to your highest level, whatever level that is. And you said elite for you. Talk about how that's a requirement for anyone to get there.
Well, we did touch on it earlier, talking about the obsession it takes to be elite. I was striving to be elite. I don't know if I ever made it. But I wanted to be. My desire was to be. And so my life focused around trying to be elite. I was obsessed with being the best, at least that I could be in my job. I did my job the way I played football. Like I worked I found success in football by outworking my competition. That was my competitive edge. Ultimately, it gets to a point as an athlete, you can work and work and work, and there's some people that you're just never going to match up to. There's those people, like I mentioned earlier, that have been touched by the hand of God, that can do things athletically that no amount of running or training or bench press or squats or ball drills or whatever is ever going to get you to where they are. But those elements came back into play. Those things I learned on the football field, they just translated right into my life as an undercover agent.
What I tell people is that this is a life and death decision. And they look at me kind of funny. I said, well, if you don't decide to be that all in, like, you're not going to get hit by lightning and die right now. But if you decide to live being all in and present in whatever you're doing as best you can, when your time playing sports is over with, that habit will be ingrained in your identity, and it'll carry over to whatever you do next. And maybe it's your wife or your kids got cancer, or maybe you just lose your job and your car gets repoed. I know what that's like. And maybe it's something else. But if you have an all-in approach, that's when it saves your life, because that's part of your identity now.
Well,
go ahead.
I was just going to say, as an undercover agent, if you're not all in, if you're not entirely committed to reaching that elite level with the obsession it takes, you'll end up dead.
Mm.
You'll end up dead.
That's quite a
And
pass fail.
there's people that have had that obsession that have ended up dead.
Yeah.
So there's no guarantee. There's no promise. There's no promise of another day, of another chance, of another case. There's no guarantee of it. But you know, like as a coach, I think that with the purest hearts, we end up lying to our kids. We tell our kids, we tell our athletes, if you work hard, if you persevere, if you can overcome, like the pot is at the end of the rainbow. And I really think that's a lie. It's said with a pure heart, but like that obsession and that hard work and perseverance, it doesn't guarantee you anything. All it guarantees you is that you are prepared when your opportunity comes. That's what it guarantees you. It doesn't guarantee you the end game. It doesn't guarantee you success. It guarantees you that when your chance arrives, you will have put yourself in the very best position that you could have to succeed.
I like how Tim Grover, he's written a couple different books. He was Jordan's trainer, and he has a book on winning and a book called Relentless. I like them both. He has like 10 or 11 different rules about winning, and one is that winning does not give a shit about you. And even if you were the best person on the planet, it still doesn't care. It still doesn't care. And to that point, you worked really hard. Like even Jerry Rice, right? Catching all those bricks, which is one of his things when his dad was throwing those bricks up to him when he's working on that brick masonry job. Even with all that, you take away Joe Montana as his quarterback, he's not quite Jerry Rice. And Andre Reed, you take away Jim Kelly, he's not quite Andre Reed. So even if you're awesome Jay Dobyns at whatever it is you do and you're all in, if you don't have a handler, if you don't have the people around you, if you don't have the teammates, when you guys are working together, even if you're the best, you're still not going to win, right? Talk about how coaching football, working with your teammates translates to you as an undercover agent because no one gets there alone. Even Jesus Christ had his 12 disciples, right?
You took the words right out of my mouth. From athletics to undercover work to law enforcement to business to families to all those things that we try to lead and manage. No one ever accomplishes anything, at least of significance, alone. There's occasionally someone left at the end of the day that gets the credit for whatever was accomplished, sometimes is left alone to take the blame for what the problem was. But none of us have ever gotten there and can truthfully say, I accomplished something amazing and I did it all by myself. No one helped me.
We literally just talked to our football team about this stuff today after our running and our lifts. You know, some guys needed to be, we were talking a little bit about leadership and how, being a good teammate, sometimes you need to speak up and let somebody know they need to do better or whatever it may be, but you can't do it by yourself. Sometimes we get in a position where our kids want to be solo runners or solo players, and sometimes they need reminded. We just had this conversation literally like 2 hours ago.
And there's, there's certain spots, certain positions on a team, certain roles in a law enforcement operation that are more glamorous than others and that are easier to give credit to. When I was, coaching my kids, and you've got the quarterbacks there, and you've got Sunshine, the pretty boy quarterback, and then you've got these powerful fast running backs, and you've got these amazing athlete wide receivers. And I always looked at those 5 kids in the center of the huddle, the center and the 2 guards and the 2 tackles, and I would tell them, no matter how amazing these guys are around you, nothing good happens for us without you. We don't accomplish anything We don't run the ball. We don't pass the ball. We don't catch the ball. We don't score touchdowns without you five guys that aren't getting the glory, that aren't getting the glamour, that don't have their name in the box score. It all starts with you guys.
The linemen will say their best compliments is that no one knows their names because their names are only called when there's a penalty. How unfortunate is that? That it's just a negative reinforcement. It's the only time you hear your name, but it's
And
so
it goes
critical.
back to what we talked about earlier is like, what is your role? What is your role in whatever that team is, whatever that operation is? Can you embrace it? Can you accept your role and then live it out to the very best that you're capable of?
I tell people each person has three different roles happening simultaneously, in that they are a teammate for everybody else on the field or the court. There's a leadership team, and most people think of that as their coaches or whoever's running the show. And then there's a support team, and people usually think that's like the people that are the trainers and such. I'm like, well, I could be a wide receiver. I'm still leading other people around me, so I can still be in that leadership role. And I can still be in the support role when the defense is on the field or someone else is running with the ball or someone else catches the ball and supporting them. So at any point in time, a person can move the needle in all three aspects of being a teammate. And it's the one that does all three that becomes that elite level teammate. There still could be somebody faster, stronger, whatever. But in that role of just being a teammate, people need to look at all three phases and move the needle in all three if they really want to achieve that level of greatness.
And there's some great leaders that are not necessarily verbal leaders. They're
Sure.
leaders that, like through the example they set, how they conduct themselves, how they handle their business, that's its own form of leadership.
Talk about a time when someone went rogue on a team or someone went rogue in the ATF and there was a loss, whether on the scoreboard or otherwise.
Yeah, I think that, there's examples of both, where the objective, the mission, the game plan, whoever is a part of that unit, like goes out of bounds, like typically for a selfish reason, and it takes away from everybody else. And then, like if you have, it's that weak link theory. Now you're trying to protect your team against that weak link. And I think that's, great coaching is when you see that you have a weak link. It doesn't necessarily have to be like an attitude weak link or a bad personality weak link. It could be a weak link that's just limited by talent. Like good coaching is like, how do we protect it? How do we take this kid? Great coaching, right? Especially like my experience coaching is on the high school level, but those A-level players, they kind of take care of themselves. They're A-level players. They just need some guidance. Great coaches are the ones that can take those D-level players and turn them into C's. Take those C-level players and turn them into B's. Turn the B's into A's. That's great coaching. The A's take care of themselves.
Hmm. It's got to be true, though, also professionally outside of sports. Someone goes rogue, someone's not a good teammate and doesn't show up. And now it's just you surrounded by Hell's Angels as opposed to having three or four guys there, right?
Well, it can be reduced even down to something that like we all can understand, regardless of what we do for a living, is families. You have a kid that starts going off the rails. Everybody's trying to like push them back to the center line, and that's that's part of it. That's part of your role. That's part of the leadership. Either like verbally getting them back in the center, or by example getting them back in the center. I've always told my kids, I don't care what your goals are, what your plans are, as long as they're good, you have my support. As long as they're good. If I don't think you have a good plan, like we're gonna have a discussion about that.
So you said like you're worried about, hey, I can't have as much time to correct any mistakes. What's on the horizon? I know you said you're an adjunct professor at Arizona. What are you doing there? What are you trying to do locally around town, or are we trying to do nationwide or otherwise?
It's all the above. I'm an adjunct professor at the U of A. I coach high school football. I do keynote presentations, typically for law enforcement conferences, but also for corporate events. The message doesn't change all that much. The stories that I use to teach the lessons don't change all that much. But I think that, for a long time, I chased what I believed was a legacy. Like as an athlete, you want to leave a legacy. As an agent, I wanted to leave a legacy. And that legacy, like the simplest legacy is, did you leave wherever you're at better than you found it?
Yep.
That's part of your legacy. But I really learned kind of the hard way that the ultimate legacy that we leave is with people. Whose life did we elevate? Whose life did we improve? Who, because they knew us or crossed our paths or associated with us, who's better for it? And the legacies of the people that touch our lives. Who's touched us that has improved us and made us better and elevated us? That's the ultimate legacy, is people.
It's easy when you're younger because you want to make the touchdown catches. So it makes sense that I want to leave this legacy because it comes back to who's going to remember me for me and my identity and my name, because it's all ego driven. And when you make it someone else, I'm more driven for impacting this other person. Then whatever impact you make moves on to say to Lucas or to Jay. So if I can impact both you guys, I just re-listened to the guy that wrote the book, Always Make Your Bed. He was an admiral, Navy SEAL. He was given a keynote, University of Texas,
Know it
and
well.
I was doing a bunch of these pull-ups because I got this thing coming up in August because of Bill Brown, and so I'm listening to this while I'm doing these pull-ups, and he goes through the math where if I impact 10 people, and then 10 people do that, 10 more, it was like by 3 generations, it was already in millions of people, and by 5, it was just around 1 billion, and by 7, it was the entire planet, where I just had to impact 10 people. That's it, and that's what you're talking about. The impact is, yeah, you want to leave what your job is, whatever, the place better, plant a new tree, but if you impact the folks, then you got another shot of those folks impacting someone else so that the place gets better
Well, and
overall.
it's that whole pass it forward thing. So
Yeah.
you like all of us can look back at someone in our lives who changed our lives for the better, who inspired us, right? So
Yep.
you're one of that. You're one of their 10, right? Now, can you pay it forward, or do you just sit on it and absorb it all yourself and enjoy it all yourself, or can you pass it on?
Yeah. That's it. That's the calling. That's why we're doing this show. That is the why. That is really the why. Can we make people better? As a former athlete, I gotta believe you're still active physically. So when you're working out, what do you like to listen to?
You know what? When I'm at the gym, I do something physical every day. It's not as intense as it used to be. I can't hold up like I used to. But I'm so old school. Like I'm not the guy walking around the gym with the earbuds on and freaking dancing in between sets. Like I just dial in on what I got to do. So to answer long answer to a short question, what I listen to, I don't listen to anything. I'm in my own head when I'm in the gym.
Got
I
it.
mind my
Got
own
it.
business. I don't chit chat. I don't want to have a
Right.
conversation with you. I don't want to, I just have to dial in and be present where I'm at, which is like, what is this lift? What is my technique? What's my rep goal? Like, okay, there's a point in this movement where there's going to be some pain. Like, you going to fight through it, or you going to tap out and go find something else to do?
Right. I I got plenty of voices running around in my head as enough as it is. A lot of times I don't need music. How about this? You and your wife are going to go on some trip to a place you guys have never been. or experience something you've never been. What's that trip going to be for you guys?
Oh, someplace we've never been. I've had so many adventures. We've had so many adventures. Such a crazy life. Um, Man, like I don't know that I have a question for that. That would be the question for her. That would
Okay,
be the question to ask Gwen, and whatever her answer is, I would nod my head, and then my next question would be like, "Can I afford it?"
right. Uh, you have a favorite sports movie?
I do. And again, like my answers are so old school. I'm dating myself. My favorite sports movie from the day I saw it as a kid till now is Brian's Song.
Oh my gosh.
That
Oh,
that that touched on
Brian
so many
Piccolo.
levels of athleticism and society and culture and relationships, and is just I just thought that was such a wonderful movie.
So he's running back for the Steelers, right? No, 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 the
For the
Bears, the
Bears,
Bears,
it was
the
Gale
Bears, the
Sayers and
Bears.
Brian Piccolo.
Brian Piccolo, yeah. So Gale Sayers, Hall of Famer, broke his leg, only played 7 seasons, still made the Hall of Fame. His backup is just killing people, just running right through people, but then develops cancer and doesn't make it. And
And the
that's
relationship of how they inspired each other and how they
that's right,
supported each other, and
all
that
the way to the
friendship
end.
that was like so much deeper than sports.
It was. And
That
it
that
trans
movie's got so many levels to it.
James Caan, I think, played Brian Piccolo, and Billy D. Williams, I think, played Gale
They were
Sayers.
so good.
Awesome, right? How about favorite sport to watch?
Favorite sport to well, that's an easy one for me. Is just I'm a football guy.
Okay.
And I understand it, and like being involved in coaching, like you look at the game differently than you do as a common man fan. Like you're not necessarily just tracking the path of the football.
Sure.
And so like I love like looking at all the nuanced elements of football.
The game within the game, all the components, right? I'm listening to Edelman, who's one of Bill Belichick's old receivers, and he was recounting this time how Bill Belichick was bitching him out because the Patriots, their colors are red, blue, and gray or silver, and Edelman would wear red gloves that match the uniform. And the coach is bitching him out, oh, Mr. Red Gloves over there, Mr. Red Gloves. And it's like, what's the problem? Well, the team they were playing against was wearing all white jerseys. So when the red gloves are on the jersey, they can tell more obviously if there's ever a holding. So you got to wear the white. So it meshes better. So there's a chance that you can get away with it a little better. That little nuance, that's gross. That, oh my God, you're that level of genius. Holy cow.
Yep.
Right? That's impressive. That's impressive.
And that's why that guy's got all those rings on all those fingers.
That's right. Because it is
One of the
obsessed.
reasons.
Yes. Favorite athlete to watch, any sport.
Well, it goes back to Brian's song. I grew up outside Chicago. My dad was a big Chicago Bears fan. Um, Gale Sayers was, as a kid, was so amazing. He was before, the Barry Sanders vibe, the Marshall Falk vibe, right? It was Gale Sayers. We really hadn't quite seen that yet. And like I wanted to be Gale Sayers. I wanted to run and jump and cut like him and move like him and be graceful like him. I'm on the opposite end of that spectrum, but that's what I dreamed of being.
So it was a little bit after Jim Brown, and Jim didn't cut like Gale did. He cut well and he was fast, but he also run through people. And so those guys were always talked about like 1-2-2-1. As a receiver, would you rather catch the ball over the middle and smash someone and break the tackle, or catch the long ball and run in and score a touchdown?
Well, that's an easy one for me. I'd rather catch the ball over the middle. That's where the Warriors play football. I had a few of those in my life,
Mhm.
those over the shoulder catches that the glory catches. But there's something satisfying about catching the ball and getting knocked around and hanging on to it and popping up and flipping the ball to the referee. There's something very satisfying about that.
There's also some moments when you're exposed, right? The ball is thrown high, and your ribs are not protected, and you're going to take some shots too, right?
It's a test of courage, no doubt.
Yep.
Because there's guys looking to knock your block off if you give them the opportunity.
Yep. You got a book or two for us? This is my wife's favorite question.
You know, I read a book recently and it touches on all these things we've talked about during this discussion. There's a book called River of Doubt.
Oh, someone
And
else
it's
said
the
that.
story of Teddy Roosevelt's adventure down the Amazon after
Yep.
he was the president of the United States. So this guy, I mean, this guy's like was the president for 2 terms of the United States, and then goes on this exploration adventure that that nearly kills him, and it probably definitely shortened his life. Um, and it's just it's a fascinating book, but like everything that we have talked about in this discussion is contained in Teddy Roosevelt's story in River of Doubt of going down the Amazon.
My wife read it. Oh my goodness. We have 1,100 books in our library downstairs, and she's all about World War One, World War Two, Civil War, military fiction, historical fiction, uh, and she loves Teddy Roosevelt. And so for our big date this past week, and we went to a play, but beforehand there was a vintage book fair downtown Indianapolis, so I took her to that first. And right when you walk in, there's this person representing the Roosevelt Society, whoever that is. It's like a fraternity um, all around the country for Roosevelt. And she walked right to it and says, "Can I get that card?" Oh my goodness! So she's gonna be happy to hear that for
Yeah, your
sure.
wife's going to like that answer.
Yep. This question is for anyone that's could be fiction or nonfiction, could be a real person. Favorite hero and then favorite villain.
Well, my answers, I keep dating myself. Your young audience is going to be like, man, how old is this dude? Like, my favorite superheroes are from when I was a kid, but they were the old school, like Batman, Superman, the old ones.
Right.
I think George Reeves was the old Superman on TV, and then ultimately Christopher Reeve was that Superman, and then like Adam West in the
Right.
like not the Batman movies, the old Batman, pow kapow,
Right.
you know, scaling the building with his like all his little bat gadgets.
Right.
I love those are classics.
Classics. Do you have a favorite lift in the gym?
Well, I used to love to just bench. It's just so old school, and it was just like it was kind of like when I was a kid. It was like the test of who was or wasn't strong. Um, I was never a great bencher. Like I used to love to bench, but my shoulders don't let me straight bar bench anymore. I got to do everything with dumbbells now because this shoulder like doesn't like this angle, but this shoulder does like this angle, likes a different one. But with dumbbells, I've got like the bars cocked and canted in different ways so that I can actually get through a workout without pain or
Nice.
with that, like pain, of course, in a workout, but without that like
Sure.
stabbing freaking joint pain.
Right. 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 Everybody likes the pain of working. Do you have a quote or two for us?
Well, we messaged about that, and I wrote a couple down here because I wanted to make sure I get it right. This isn't. There's some that are very common that we all love, but I always, when I heard this, I immediately embraced it. It's better to be a warrior in a garden than a gardener in a war.
Yep.
Which basically says, like, for all of us, man, be prepared. Like, be peaceful. Um, be a peaceful person, but be prepared. Prepare yourself. And then, like I embraced this when I was working undercover. And like I've actually got a wristband that I keep it with me every day, not to remember it, but just to like have a presence in my life all the time is Psalm 23:4. Though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I fear no evil, for you are with me. Um, that's I don't know if we're going to call that a quote or not,
Sure. Why not? It's written
but
down.
yeah.
Yeah. That's awesome. Where can people find you, Jay?
I have a website. It's just Dobyns, all one word, JAYDOBYNS.com. My books are on Amazon. And, but like, I'm not a social media guy. I don't have a bunch of socials. And, like short of doing something like this, I pretty much keep to myself.
And you still make an impact. I saw all the recommendations from leaders around the world, recommending you. So you've done some great things, even though you're very humble about it. And I think people will find you if they really want to.
Well, we said, in our warm up, I'm very, very, very much just a common man. There's really nothing special about me. I've been in some uncommon situations. I did the best I could in those situations. Some days I succeeded, some days I failed. And that's what us common men do.
The uncommon ones keep pushing and keep pushing and keep pushing. And that seems to be you. And that flies in the face of you just being a common person.
Well,
Because you keep pushing.
I've said many times, I know what a hero looks like. I've walked alongside heroes. I am definitely not a hero, but I know heroes. I have a hero in my life, which is my wife. She's the hero of my story. She saved my family. And so, but there's heroes out there, but they come in all shapes and sizes, and they don't all wear capes.
That's right. That's right. Jay, we had a great conversation with you. I'm very blessed to have you on. For those that are trying to reach out to us or want to send us a message, info@athlete-builder.com. Our summit is coming up June 7th. Outstanding speakers that are coming to work with people that have been on the show. Some of those speakers are bringing other coaches just to help other folks with their lifts at lunch. So it's also at athlete-builder.com, and Jim, JIM10, get you 10% off. Welcome to fill that room on June 7th. Jay, man, thanks so much for being on, man. It was a great, great time. I'm really glad you agreed to do it, and we're better for it. Thank you.
Yeah, Jim, Lucas, your audience, thank you. Go be amazing. Go put your dent in the universe.
Damn right. Let's go.